Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome, folks. Today, the Hungry Gamer is back with another crowdfunding preview, and today we're talking about Clans of Midgard from Gray Fox Games. And before I get started, please make sure you turn on your Klingon subtitles, because if I make any mistakes in this rules overview, that's where you'll find the corrections. Additionally, do note that everything you see here is still very much in the prototype phase, hence the little dice holders here that are holding down the edges of the board. Obviously, you won't need that in the actual production copy. Now, what this game is this is a game that kind of mixes area control and roll and write, but it's a draft and write game, as you are trying to kind of control the region of Midgard with your Vikings, and you'll be killing monsters and supporting different clans and trying to win the favor of the gods. And of course, going to Valhalla and all those Viking-y things. And as I said, to do that, you'll be doing some area control, some what you would recognize as roll and write things, and a whole bunch of card drafting. Now, if you're not interested in how this game is played and you want to jump into my final thoughts, then you want to go to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us still here, let's talk about how this game is played. First off, you're going to play over 4 rounds. And at the beginning of each round, you will start out by flipping over a god card. And each god will have a different ability, different bonus, different in-game scoring condition, and there's a whole bunch of them in the game, as you can see right here. And I will tell you how, and I'll explain later how you decide who actually wins the god. Then once that's done, players will go through a draft of cards. In a 3-player game, every player will have 8 of these cards here that they'll be drafting from, and then 4 of them will be set aside for the round and out of the game. And so what's going to happen is you'll draft a card and pass the rest. Draft, pass, and so on. Now, what I'm going to do is just pretend that this here is my final set of cards right here. And once you determine what your cards are, you do several things. The first thing that you do is you determine who has the highest offering and wins the god. And that is based on these symbols right here. So in this case, I would have an offering of 8. If that was the most, then I would claim the god here, and I would get this bonus at the end of the game, or during the game, depending on what the god is. And I'll note that there are some that is a majority gets a stronger bonus than other players who have offerings, but for the most part, highest offering gets the card. Then everything else on here represents something else that the cards are going to do. So I will simply go through the order that I like to go through these things in. And so to start with, I always like to do the runes, and these are your runes over here. And every single card that you get has, well, potentially has a different rune on it. So here, this is an A, this is a C or a D, this one here is also an A, this one is an L, etc., etc. And so what you'll do is you go through all the runes that you have in your deck, and you mark them all off. And as you're going throughout the game, you'll be getting more and more of these, and if you fill out a row, you'll get those points at the end of the game. And if you fill out a column, we'll get those points at the end of the game. The next thing that I do is I do the slaying scores. And to slay one of the monsters, and so what you're going to do is, to slay a monster, you have to get pairs of that monster. So here I have 2 kraken, and here I have 2 trolls, and that's all I had. I had 1 dragon left over, so that's going to be nothing. So I've killed a kraken and a troll. And so what I do is I look at the game board, and the board tells me that the troll is worth 3 points and the kraken is worth 6, so I got myself 9 slaying points for the first round, like so. Then we look at our glory, and that's the number here in the middle. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I have 11 glory, and that's going to be 11 points at the end of the game. Now what's important to note is, next round I have to get at least 12 glory. If I don't get 12 glory, then I'll wind up with 0. But of course, in the next round, I just have to get higher than 0. So as you go through, you can try to figure out what the lowest number you need to get the most glory is, or just go for it and get a high number, 0, high number 0, whatever it is that you want to do. But all that gets added up at the end of the game. Same with all 4 rounds of slaying. The next thing that we go into is your clans. And the clan that you're choosing to support is represented down here on the bottom. And so you're going to see which clan you have the most support for. And I'm just kind of dealing these out here, so I see what I have the most support for. And it looks like so I have 3 clans represented, and I am actually tied between the Wolf clan and the Raven clan. And so what I do then is I look down on the board, and I see Raven clan takes priority over the Wolf clan. So this is the one that I get to place warriors out. Then I look at each card, and I look at the region that you get to put warriors into. So assuming I am green, I get to put 1 here into the forest, and 1 here into the mountains, and then another 1 here into the mountains. So I've placed those warriors out on the board. And then the other players would do the same as well. The next thing that happens is you check your Draugr, or your boats, and that's going to be filled in down here towards the bottom. And so you look again at all your cards, and you see how many boats you have. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so what that allows me to do is it allows me down here to fill in 6 of these spaces. And I can fill them in whatever order I want. But every time I get to one of these symbols right here, that will allow me to put another warrior out into that region. So as I'm looking here, if I can get 1 more warrior out here, this region is going to fight. And I'll explain that in a moment. So I have 6, and I'm putting a 1 here just for round 1 is how I like to do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I will put just 1 more right here. So what's happened here is for these 2, I get to put 2 more warriors over here, and down here, 1 more warrior into the purple. Then we go into the combat. And the way that's going to work is you start at the lowest number and you go around. If you have met the required number of warriors for the region, there is a battle. And the last thing that happens is before you do the battle is you check to see who has a Valkyrie for that region. And so you look at the symbol and you look at your cards. Up here is the Valkyrie symbol. So in this case, I do not have the Valkyrie for there. So this would just play out as is. The winning faction, in this case red, would place their warriors up here, while the blue faction sends 1 warrior to Valhalla. And Valhalla is notated here on your board with the horns. And so for every warrior you lose, you cross 1 off. When you fill up a column, you'll get those points at the end of the game. Then we would go to each of the different places and determine if there's a winner. Now, as we look right here, we'll see this fight's happening, and currently red is winning. But I have the green Valkyrie. So what that allows me to do is roll this die right here. And that means I get to add 2 more warriors to the combat. And so now I have 3 warriors, which means I will win the combat. So my 3 go up here, and they'll get warriors in Valhalla. And so the other thing I get to do, though, is I've now won a combat in that region, and so I get to mark that one off. Now, let's just say that I had rolled this symbol right here, or there simply wasn't a fight in the region I had the Valkyrie for, like up here would be. In that case, I would go and I would mark off the Valkyrie on the bottom of the board here, and both this and this are set collection points at the end of the game. And then, once all the fighting is done, you would go and every player that had a victorious warrior would count up how many they had, and they come right down here and they put the number that they had there. I had 3. And you will do that for a total of 4 times. At the end of the game, you'll add up all of your points, which are your columns here, your total of slaying, your total of glory, your total of victorious warriors, whatever your set collection is for winning victories, your Valhalla points, and whatever your set collection is for your Valkyries, plus any points you get from the various gods. And that's how this game works. So, what do I like about this game? The first thing that I like is I do like this combination of roll and write, drafting, and area control. I do find it actually quite satisfying, the point salad nature of it. And in the games I've played, you get a lot of points. It's always fun to me to get a lot of points. I also like the multi-use cards and that you have so many choices every card that you draft, because you can't do everything. And it's a game about figuring out what you can do when and maximizing your opportunities when they come. And that is something that I always enjoy about a game. The next thing that I like is I like the different gods that you can get. They're not hugely impactful all the time, but what they do is they give you something to go for on certain rounds where it's like, no, I should really go for that because I have this strategy I'm working on, which it will synergize really well with. So then you want to chase that, which means you're going to be chasing certain cards to get those offerings things up at the top. And so it's adjusting everything else you're doing because you're trying to get that card because you think that card is going to be the one that's going to give you an advantage that's going to pay off down the road. And I think that works really well. Along with the point salad nature of it, I like the way it works. Most of them feel fairly thematic to me. It works out to me that you are getting these runes, you're filling out the rows and columns, and okay, that makes sense. You're getting these runes to do a thing. More on that later. The way that the boats work is you're getting your boats filled out, you're going to get to drop more troops out onto the map. I think that works really, really well. The same way you're trying to figure out which clan you're going to support, that's where you're going to put your troops out. Again, the decisions you have to make with drafting, all of that I think works really, really well. And I particularly like the glory. I really like the mechanic of you have to get more glory every turn. And if you don't, you get 0, which means you've now reset and you can get more glory the next turn. And so all of those things coming together, I really, really enjoy. And a special shout out to the area control that you're getting the warriors out there and you're going to get something if you lose, you're going to get something if you win. And the way that you can mess with that, the way that you have the Valkyrie die, the way that you're sending the boats out there, the way that some of the gods let you you want to get a tie. All of that I think is very, very interesting because you want to win at least once in all of the different regions. And with only 4 rounds, that's not an easy thing to do. And so all of the point salad-ness, I think, comes together pretty darn well. So what are my quibbles with the game? And I really only have, well, just a couple. One of them is the runes. I don't know for sure, and I know it is still in the prototype phase, but I'm just kind of disappointed with the ABCD nature of it. I wish they were more runic. Now, on the other hand, though, if they were more runic, they'd be harder to find on the board, so I wish there was a balance there somehow. And I think it's because right now, since they're very much English letters, I want to be able to spell something. That's not what you're doing. You're doing rows and columns. So, yeah, there's that. The next thing is, I think the board needs to be bigger. And I did talk to Lance from Grey Fox, and he said that the board will be bigger. And the reason it needs to be bigger is because sometimes as you get your warriors out there, it covers up the symbols for the region or the number of warriors you need there to make the fight actually happen. And you just definitely don't have enough space to put all the victorious warriors up there on the axes with the small board that I have. But I am told it's going to be bigger, but right now it is not. And then the last thing I'll say is, there is a danger for serious AP in this game because every card does so many things. You can just sit there and try to figure out what's going to happen and try to figure out what's going to come back to you. And it can feel overwhelming because 1, you can't do everything. And 2, there's so many things that you can do trying to plan out the best path to the most points in what is a relatively short game can make players take a long time. But there you have it, folks. That is Clans of Midgard. I really, really enjoyed this one. And I'm not sure what I expected, but I didn't expect it to like as much as I did. I just didn't think Draft and Write meets Area Control in a game that plays in half an hour was gonna work, but it does. And this is one that I really want to play this game more already. I was very, very tickled by this game. I was very intrigued by this game, and I think it works on a lot of levels. And considering how prototype it still is, I'm very excited for what the final version of this one looks like. I put this up there with one of the better games that I have demoed from Grey Fox, and I've done quite a few of them now, but this one really, really has me pretty excited, and I don't like Viking theme in general, but this one I'm excited about. So there you have it, folks. As always, if I made any mistakes in the rules overview, please let me know in the comments with the timestamp so I can get that into the clan subtitles. I neglected to mention at the beginning, I was sent a prototype of this game, and they may send me a production copy of it after it funds, but that is not guaranteed, and I've received no money to make this video. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.